Hello, I'm Madeline Lamboley. I'm professor in criminology at University of Moncton, and I'm the author of a Canada Research Chair in Sexual Violence Prevention and Intervention.
Hello, I'm Marie-Andrée Pelland. I'm also professor of criminology at Université de Moncton.
So today we will be talking about living in a patriarchal community, especially understanding the experience of victimization for women who live in a close patriarchal community. We will start by talking about theoretical concepts, gender-based abuse, coercive control, cross-patriarchal communities, intimate partner violence in close patriarchal communities, and spiritual abuse. Then we will discuss the methodology of our study, the result including a discussion on a continuum of abuse, followed by a conclusion. So gender-based abuse consists of both actions and inaction and is intrinsically linked to a person's sex. In the case of spiritual abuse, gender-based abuse is a crucial concept and can consist of overt deception or more subtle inaction of a family member or the entire community, sent by a community's cultural norms and values. It is an essential concept where spiritual abuse primarily consists of deception and inaction of a family or community. Gender-based abuse deprives victims of the power and control they could have over their lives, while simultaneously increasing that of the abuser. An interesting distinction between gender-based abuse and intimate partner violence is that there can be multiple aggressors in situations with gender-based abuse, and this aggressor can operate beyond the border of any one country or community. In situations of gender-based abuse, women and girls are often criticized for their passivity by onlookers. It is continuously reinforced by systems that involve gender inequality and vice versa. It should be noted that immigrant women face increased vulnerability because of their cultural background, immigration status, or legal status, which can create additional barriers to seeking help. Coercive control was first academically described by Eben Stark, and it consists of a series of strategy and action that are gradually put into place by a partner or ex-partner with the aim of isolating, controlling, terrorizing, and depriving the person of their freedom. It is intended to ensure the subordination of women in a conjugal context. In so-called traditional communities, women's choice are constrained through the means of coercive control and thus dictated by the husband, the leader, and the whole community. Coercive control enables certain men and groups to force women to satisfy their needs.
Stark in 2023 created a new model where he conceptualized how the child could be included in the coercive violence. What he said and what we can use with cultic organization of our patriarchal communities is that the child is a tool that it is used to increase the control of women or other members. The child becomes a target when tactic against the woman fails. The child can be used as a scapegoat. So the child will come to live in a constant climate of fear. Even if we perceive the violence that he experienced as light, because it is repeated, it increases the fear in his everyday life. It can be slapped, pinched, punched, or even used as an object, always to increase the control over his mother. His mother and him or her will see that the woman, the mother cannot protect them because she cannot stop the violence that her husband used against the children. So within a group, the parent, the co-member cannot protect each other from the violence. The aim of that behavior is obtaining concession of the woman and demonstrating her inability to protect her children. So when they will need someone to help them, they won't go to their mother, they will go to their father, who is the abuser in that circumstance. He can even, in some extreme, use sexual coercion to increase the control of the woman in the relationship. It's a form of ongoing violence aimed at destroying the child's dignity, self-confidence, and sexual autonomy. It's a terrorizing dimension. It's aimed to destroy the child's ability to protect themselves. And it can have deep psychological humiliation and degradation and effect over his everyday life. So what we can see is that the sexual violence is another tool. We talked again, the appearance of the child. We gave him or her less way to wear different kind of clothes, where she can go. So we aim to control her sexuality, her identity, to manipulate the mother. In a close patriarchal community, patriarchy can be described as a man's systemic dominance of violence. It's an oppression of women. A society, a group where woman oppression and abuse is perpetuated on a daily basis by the men of the community. It's rendered easier because of the misogyny. Misogyny, it's a mean of maintaining patriarchal order. And that was a concept used by Kate Mann. The man is perceived as dominant being, and the woman is seen as a moral resources at the disposal of the men of the community. And where any refusal or lack of ability on her part is experienced as a fault or an offense, and she can, in those cases, be punished. Kate Mann described in her book misogyny as, argued that we should think of misogyny as serving to uphold patriarchal order, understood as a stand among various similar systems of domination, such as racism, xenophobia, classism, ageism. Misogyny does this by visiting hostile and adversarial social consequences on a certain class of girl or woman to enforce and police social norms that are gendered either in theory or in practice. So we put together a patriarchal order with a system of domination where each behavior of the woman is controlled by a set of rules or norms, and those norms gave a representation of what a woman should be in every context of her everyday life. In a close patriarchal community, misogyny helped to regulate women behavior. We impose the silence, so women cannot talk about their experiences, cannot talk about the aggression, and it's imposing also deprivation related to health and the protection of her right and freedom. These norms include right on the part of the man and obligation on the part of the woman. When she does something that she should not do, men will say, what does she think she is? Why she does that? She also introduced the concept of empathy. That's an important one. It's where in a patriarchal community, women who are aggressor will be excused, will be say, oh, it's such a good person. He cannot do behavior like that. And women will be responsive of the behavior of the men. So women will be once more punished for the victimization that they experience in the hand of the men of their communities. There's also another concept that we can use. It's the institutional betrayal. Even if she is abused by one man, many men in the community has itself kept those victimizations silence. Frey described the institutional betrayal as an institution commit acts or omission that harm individuals who depend on an institution to support resources, protection, and in some cases, survival. And that can cause betrayal trauma, harm caused by an institution to individuals who are dependent on it. Explore or abuse by trusted figure can have profound psychological effect. We are abused by certain member of the community, and we are once more abused because of the silence of everyone in the community. So that can have pervasive effect on the women of the community. That can also lead to betrayal blindness. What does that mean? It's a phenomenon by which victims refuse or are unable to recognize acts of betrayal or abuse committed by trusted figure. So even if they experience violence, they won't be able to name those behaviors as violence because within the community, it has another name. It's even sometimes it doesn't have a name at all. And that can also have psychological effect on the victim who is experiencing emotional, financial, social victimization by the institution and by the aggressor.
So in patriarchal contexts, women who experience intimate partner violence in a close patriarchal community and who leave such group often face a multitude of challenges. These challenges can significantly impact their well-being and the ability to reintegrate into society. Some of the specific difficulties can include living in precarious conditions. For example, after leaving a patriarchal group, women may find themselves in unstable living situation. This can include financial insecurity, lack of safe housing, and limited access to basic needs and necessities. It can heighten vulnerability when seeking help. Those who have left patriarchal groups often experience increased vulnerability when trying to access support services. This can be due to a lack of trust in institutions, fear of retaliation, or insufficient resources tailored to their unique needs. It can heighten vulnerability when attempting to report abuse. Reporting abuse can be particularly challenging for women from patriarchal backgrounds. They may face disbelief, victim blaming, or further intimidation, making it difficult to seek justice and protection. For immigrant women, challenges are bigger because sometimes they didn't learn French or English. And finally, heightened vulnerability in the process of deconstruction and reconstruction of the self. Living a patriarchal group often involves a profound transformation of one's identity and belief. This process of deconstruction and reconstruction can be fraught with emotional turmoil, self-doubt, and the struggle to establish a new sense of self.
There's also the concept of spiritual abuse, who introduces also various kind of control. What is spiritual abuse? It's a wound or mistreatment of the soul. Spiritual abuse refers to misuse of power within a religious or spiritual context, where an individual or a group use manipulation or coercion to control others. This form of abuse can cause harm or spiritual, emotional, psychological, physical, or relational level. Spiritual abuse has a specific power dynamic where the patriarch can be seen as having superpower within the community, and he can use deception and manipulation, coercive control, to make his or her member believe his superpower. The experience of spiritual abuse is described by Rutkowski as disorienting, exhaustive, and can also the person can also experience a level of distress. She used the metaphor of labyrinth to express the difficulty to leave the group. So there's so many pathways within the group that often she use a lot of road before she can exit the group. Spiritual abuse is insidious, difficult to detect at first, and very hard to escape. She used the metaphor of spider web to explain that idea. The person doesn't see the trap coming in the group. Those traps are invisible to herself. She doesn't see the danger within the group initially. She becomes rapidly trapped without realizing it. And escape is complex, frightening, and confusing, with the constant fear of the abuser, return, or intervention. So when she's in, the trajectory to go out, to quit the group, the community, is really difficult in those circumstances. Why? Because when she enters the group, she can maintain the ideal that everything is perfect. She goes within the group because of the leader, because of the philosophy. She's seduced by the group. Rutkowski will say that she's groomed by the group to believe what they want her to believe. She idealized progressively the leader, who described himself as the authority, as having some superpower, and she cannot criticize those superpower. She only have to respect those and obey. The leader usually doesn't practice what he teach. He will demand that the member respect the leader, but the leader can do as he please. Usually, he will demand progressively more and more of the member, and the member will have more and more responsibility within the group, such in a way that maybe all her day and even night can be filled with things to do for the community. The leader in those during the relationship seeks self-promotion. He wants to be praised, to be recognized as a divinity, a superpower, a person who have various kind of knowledge. He will also help member to focus on things to do. And he will often acknowledge recognize the member from the thing they produce. If they don't do it, they can even be expelled. And those who don't perform as the leader wants can be punished. So that will bring up a constant state of fear in the member. How does the leader do that on an everyday basis, and how the other member do that also? By controlling, on use control that limit agentivity. The member cannot take decision for herself. She has to ask someone else. Control through performance-based acceptance. If she do things that the leader asks, if she conforms to the group norm, she will be loved by the leader and by the other member. If she doesn't respect the role that she has to perform, she will be punished, and the leader will take back his love for the member. The control is also used through compulsory obedience of the aggressor. So the member must obey the person who use those kind of control, who use violence against her in her everyday life. Control also through censorship. The member doesn't have access to all the information. She cannot talk about her emotion. She cannot criticize the group. So she has to censor her representation of her experience, because if she say what she thinks, she can be punished. She can also be controlled through isolation. If you don't obey, we won't talk to you. We will isolate you. We'll separate you from your family, from the member that you know, who you believe, who you have a friendship with, always to ensure that you will obey the authority figure within the group. Rutkowski used this image that can resume briefly all the kind of control that we talked about. So we have presented to you a lot of concepts to understand what is happening in a patriarchal community. We have the charismatic or the authoritarian authority. We have the various forms of control that are present in your everyday life. We have gender roles that are imposed on women, girls, and that they have to obey to be recognized. We have punishment. They see others being punished. They see violence in everyday life, and the only way to survive within the group is to respect those norms. So that combination can integrate fear in their everyday life. If they don't do that, they will have X consequences. So the fear is part of their experience. And after that, each member of the community participate to the monitoring of or in the compliance of each member. So the surveillance is not only done by the leader and the authority figure, but by everyone in an everyday basis.
So on our methodology for this presentation, we are describing, we conducted a total of 41 interviews between the years of 2005 and 2020. We interviewed women from close patriarchal community, including 11 interviews with immigrant women forced into marriage and 30 interviews with women from polygamous cult groups. The women interviewed were recruited through community resource staff and advertisement passed around at organizations who work with this population. Data analysis was conducted via thematic analysis as per Paillet and Mukeli, wherein we systematically identify, grouped, and subsidiarily discursively examine the themes addressed in a corpus, highlighting the role of women in socialization process. Systematic analysis makes it possible to identify categories of interaction in the data to apprehend attitudinal form of exchange, enable us to recognize the system of interaction between women and other community members, and to identify the implicit rules that influence their decision and behavior in the community.
So if we look at the result, we will ask ourselves, who has the control within the communities? Is it the authority figure, the religious leader, the leader representative, family members, friends, or all the community members? So what we have to think about in a patriarchal community, there's a multiplicity of actors imposing the standard, the norm. I will give you the experience of Brielle to show that. On a daily basis, we were all watched at school, at home, everywhere. In adolescence, the girls were watched more. There were always investigations going on. Did you adopt this behavior at school or this behavior again? It's like everyone's always watching everyone else or seeing if they're doing something wrong all the time. Everyone watching everyone else, children, parent, father, all the time. It was one of those moments that traumatized me the most because I was so scared. First of all, it was the man who had the power, the father who sat me down in a room, the fathers who bring us into the room and ask questions about what we said or done. And to see if our story were similar or not. But as our discourse said, the surveillance, everyone in the community look at the other all the time to report on his or her behavior to someone. Camille will say in that regard, if I had a boyfriend, which I don't, I wouldn't be able to go to school. I wouldn't be able to leave my house, and they're going to take me to name a country of origin, to marry another man. For this reason, I don't want to cause problems at home, and that's why I'm not looking for a boyfriend. Since then, as soon as I leave school, I don't talk to anyone. I don't know when my father will come. He won't understand if he see a boy. It's my boyfriend. Since that day, I don't talk to anyone and I go straight home. That's why I'm afraid to lead a conversation, even with friends. Elodie, who was forced in a marriage, will say, at first, I wasn't ready, but my father asked me, and then I asked him, why do I have to make this sacrifice? And my father said, no, it's not a sacrifice. It's going to be an honor for you because I'm deciding for you. But I didn't agree with that at all. So we see that the situation is constructed within the group as an honor, even if in her everyday life it won't be. It will be tough. She will experience violence. But here, it's described by the man who has the power as an honor. If we look at Laurie, who was also threatened with a forced marriage, my father, the king of the house, is the one who decides. We don't have the choice of deciding anything on our own. I'm afraid to say that I have a boyfriend because I don't know that will happen. If I say something, there will be consequences. He'll get angry. He bring me out there. He marry me and doesn't bring me here in Canada anymore. I saw him and I understood that in our country, in our village, he can kill his daughter, he can force his daughter, he can hit his daughter so that people, and even that people won't say anything about the parents and say that this gentleman has done something good. Donc, she sees the risk to do something wrong here in Canada, because she knows that if she do something wrong, her father can use other kind of power on her. Susie also said, I can remember a time in my life when I wasn't told that my role in my life was to grow up and become a wife in a plural marriage. I was taught that I was to be obedient to my father, priesthood leaders, and clergymen, and after my marriage, to my husband. I was told that if I was a good witch mean, being obedient, I will be safe. So they don't have a choice. The only choice that they have is to obey. Sometimes it's their father, sometimes it's their husband, but they always have to obey someone.
So, who is control enforced? In patriarchal context, control is often enforced through various types of constraints, each designed to limit the autonomy and the freedom of women who live in these communities. These constraints can be categorized into several types. So first one, the psychological constraint, like fear, threats, and time constraints are commonly used to manipulate and control individuals. These tactics create an environment of constant anxiety and pressure, making it difficult for individuals to make independent decisions. Another one, patriarchal honor constraints. In some culture, patriarchal honor is upheld by forcing daughters into marriage. This practice not only restricts their personal freedom, but also perpetuates gender inequality and reinforces traditional power structure. Also, the spiritual constraints. Access to paradise and communication with higher power are used as spiritual tools to enforce control. So by manipulating religious belief, women are coerced into compliance with the group's norm and expectation. Migration constraint, the promise of obtaining immigrant status in Canada can be used as a means of control. Women may be forced to adhere to certain conditions or behavior in exchange for the opportunity to migrate or in creating a power imbalance. Economic constraints. Economic control is exerted by selling individuals or using them to pay off family debts. This form of constraints not only exploits women, but also ties their fate to the financial decision of their family. And finally, physical constraints. So physical violence and sequestration are direct methods of enforcing control. These actions physically restrict women's movements and autonomy, often leading to severe psychological and physical harm. So, like Danae, I had no choice but to say, yes or no. I had no choice but to say yes. If she don't have the choice, she doesn't have the choice to say just yes. It's the only option. For Brielle, I met I met a man in the church when I was 17, and by 18 we were married. After that, I don't want to say it was a forced marriage, but it was borderline forced. In the group, you don't have sex until you are married. It must forbidden of things. Then my family gave me an ultimatum: either you marry her or, or you leave. They didn't want to keep me. They couldn't keep me because I would never really had any work experience, because I hadn't finished high school, because I had no experience of life in general. I decided to marry him because I didn't know what else to do. I saw my husband as savior, if you like. So she didn't have the choice, and it's the only choice she had. So they can control over sexuality. So like Brielle, I'm married, I'm abused for a few years, then finally, but I decided to leave him. It was difficult because the church is, first of all, it's a male-dominated church, so men can do no wrong. Okay, even the marriage talk in this church is like, woman, be submissive to your husband at all times. Give your husband what he deserves, which is to fuck when he wants to fuck. And that's it. It's no question. So women don't have the choice. It's just an obedience all the time for everything.
So it's not a question of consent. She always has to say yes.
Yeah. So, and for Lena, polygamist, I refused to marry an older man. My father had always told me that I could refuse any man. Everyone was offended by my choice, my father, my mother, my other mothers. When they realized I wouldn't change my mind, they sent me to work for a family in another country. After 6 months, my father came to me and asked, do you want to marry him now? I said yes, because my life was already miserable. It couldn't be worse. So I accepted the choice, because otherwise I would never be goddess. And for Jade, I don't sleep with him, so her husband. I sleep on the sofa in the living room with my son. He just calls me to make love. The sex he has with me is something I don't accept. It's what he wants. That's when I started doing everything I could to avoid it, but it's impossible. When he really wants to do things to me, he hits me in the face, all over my body. When we had my second child, he made the decision. I didn't want to, so I took the pills so I wouldn't get pregnant. When I ran out of pills, I asked him if I could renew. He said, why do you want that? I want children. I said, it's not the right time. I'm still young. I don't want to. He said, it's not it's not up to you. It's up to me. And he forced me to have a second child. How does it unfold throughout one's existence?
So over the life course of each of the participants that we met, the life in the patriarchal community can be declined is various kind of control and experiences. First, in the childhood and the teenage years, we can describe this period of time as socialization to gender role. The women or the girls have to learn the norm and their role within the community, and they are doing that during time where they are always monitored by others. Sometimes the community will use luring to convince girls to marry some man or another. The question of consent is not a risk question. It's often under duress. And usually women during that time will be witness to violence, but they have to learn to keep silence to maintain the structural of the patriarchal community. For example, how does the consent was obtained with Elodie? He hid a lot of reality. He said he was buying jewelry and stuff, but that wasn't true either. I found out that he didn't do anything at all day, that he did drugs and hung out with friends. So we say that we see here that her husband used false information to convince her to marry him. If we look at Canarina, who was a member of a cultic group, she said that when I got to the point of asking myself the question, I had already slept with my boyfriend when I was 17. So I had committed a sin. It was done in secret. And then when I was ready to ask myself the question, do I want to get married? I couldn't ask myself that question anymore. I know that at the time, mentally, I just made a ball of paper with it and put it on the bottom of my bag. And then I just didn't open the bag again because I wasn't able to live with the consequences of the answer. Then my life in my head, I couldn't ask myself the question, I already slept with someone. I could never marry someone else again. I was going to end my life alone. So it's like I couldn't, in my head, I was convinced that I couldn't ask myself that question. So she learned within the community that she could have sex only with her husband. She didn't do that. So the only solution was to be married to the man she had sex with, because it was the representation or the solution the only solution that was available in her communities. If we look at Chloe, who was threatened with forced marriage, she will say, my mother, she checked my bag. When I'm rigging what number I've got, I used to be allowed to wear makeup, but not now, it's forbidden. I go to school in the morning and she knows it takes me 45 minutes. Afterward, as soon as my school is over, I'm 3 minutes late and she asks me, what have you been doing? Where have you been? When I go out, it's with my mother or my sister. So we see here that her freedom is more and more constrained by her mother and sister and by the community, because she has to keep her purity for that potential wedding. They're also forced to see violence used against others and to keep the silence about these violence that they see. We will look at Caroline's experience in a polygamous community. Control was more important than studying in the classroom. Brutality toward children was the norm in the community, but there were different levels of tolerance with each family as to how much violence was acceptable. But families were never judged each other. Even if in one family knew that serious abuse was taking place in another, no one intervened. This was part of the religious doctrine that no man had the right to interfere in another man's family.
So after that, when women are adults, they need to consolidate into sexual social rule. So in patriarchal society, violence often manifests in unique ways, but differ from traditional intimate partner violence. So women are often forced into rigid sexual roles, reinforcing gender-based power dynamics. Like dynamics different from intimate partner violence, because violence in patriarchal contexts operates on a continuum deeply intertwined with the concept of honor. After that, the cycle of domestic violence is distinct, because the cycle of violence in this context follow a unique pattern, often involving authority figures, and then finally the women are like trapped. So they just know tension and crisis, but know the justification on the honeymoon in this cycle of domestic violence. Like authority figures, these figures play a significant role in perpetuating violence, often acting as enforcer of patriarchal norms. And the violence is committed by multiple perpetrators. Unlike typical intimate partner violence, violence can be perpetrated by multiple individuals, further complicated the dynamic. So it's not just the husband, it's also the entire family, family-in-law, community, and leaders. So it's a way to preserve the patriarchal honor and to dominate women. So the violence serves to preserve patriarchal honor rather than solely focusing on the domination of men over women. So understanding this dynamic is crucial for addressing and mitigating violence in patriarchal societies. So like Florence, I continued to live with them. I thought it was normal. When he would come, he would hit me, he would beat me, he would come for a month, a few weeks, and then he would leave. I said, okay, I will put up with it and will carry on for the honor of the family and their family. So Florence just wants to preserve the honor of family and accept the suffering reality. Mandy, at 16, I really wanted to get married to respect God's will. At the time, I would never kiss a boy. An hour before the ceremony, my mother told me to remember that my husband would be the priesthood leader in the family and that he would instruct me in everything. I had to listen to him. So he was going to teach me what goes on between a man and a woman. I didn't have a nice experience for the first time in the times after that. He was violent. He beat me several times. Community member and my sister wife didn't say anything because it's just the norm and it just like that. So those women accepting their suffering reality. For Leah, my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law's wife all treat me badly. I was given lots and lots of work to do, all the housework. It got harder and harder for me. I was pregnant. My mother told me it's better if you stay here. But at the same time, she was under a lot of pressure from society. My sister-in-law and then my husband came looking for me, and then they continued the psychological torture. I did everything. Nobody worked except me. I did all the housework. I had to clean the kitchen, the house, wash the clothes by hand, everything. So even her mother was not able to protect her. So because the pressure from society, from community is too strong. So accepted violence, it all seemed terrifying. In an assembly, a bloody sheet, a kind of organized rape with the blessing of Sarah's family. That's what marriage was, a sexual assault accompanied by public humiliation. So everyone takes place in this rape. This sexual violence is accepted by community and it's encouraged by community too. So when I was, and for Paula, polygamist, when I was 15, I was married to Ron. Before marriage, I didn't know him. My mothers were happy about the marriage because Ron was an important member of the church. One of my mother told me that he could be violent with me because she knew it's his first wife. From that moment on, I was afraid. I spoke to my mother about it, and she told me to trust in God. And she also told me to keep sweet, and my life would be beautiful. On my wedding day, I had relation with my husband. Today, I know it was rape. So the cycle of violence is distinct because the husband don't need to justify his acts. So he, like Jade, is never sorry. He apologized, forget it. He's never said sorry. I have never heard it. So the aggressor don't need to justify anything and don't need to have the confidence of his wife. So like Simone, violence was present every day in words that were difficult for me and my children to understand. It was used by my husband and my sister's wife. Sometimes he used physical violence. I had a few blows in my face, but nobody ever said anything. Sometimes he threatened to disown me so I wouldn't get into heaven. Sometimes he threatened to hit my children to get me to have sex. I was always afraid. So like Simon and Jan, they just experience the tension and the crisis. That's it.
They don't experience the honeymoon phase, that other kind of intimate partner violence.
Yeah, exactly. So for the empathy example now, so empathy is like the community trust. Finally, the community leaders trust just him. So for Leah, people from the community came to the house to see what was going on. I told them what was going on with naked picture of girls' underwear, picture of my husband with girls, all kinds of stuff. People were putting a lot of pressure on me to stay here. I had to try again. It was going to change. So the fault is on the victim, not on the aggressor. For Sophie, I went to see a religious group. It's important for us, but suggested I go back there to apologize. They told me, apologize and God get on with your life, with your husband and in-laws, and you will be fine. You'll see. Though another time, the fault is on Sophie. She need to put effort again and again and again. But it's like a perfect example of empathy.
When some women arrive to the point that they leave the community or the group, they have to experience a lot of difficulty outside, in their life outside. First, they have difficulty even after leaving the group to recognize oneself as a victim or as a survivor. They also question each person of authority that they met. It can be a pastor, a psychotherapist, a psychologist. They genuinely, at first, have distrust in the relationship. They don't believe in the other because they experience too much oppression in their patriarchal community. If we look at Solange, who is a former member, she will say, I've never considered myself a victim. Yet I married a violent man at 18 because it's what I thought I should do. For a long time, I thought I made that choice. Today, I think it was forced marriage tingled with daily violence. It took me 10 years after leaving the group to be able to say, and sometimes I still doubt it, I still see my experience as normal. So it is difficult to recognize the violence that they experience because in this community, this kind of violence had other name. It was normal. It what was they had to do. For example, Kathleen will say, when I live in the community, I often saw men eating their wives, mother eating their children. Sometimes women will come to church with wounds and no one will say anything. In my family, I often turn a blind eye to the violence. Today, after 5 years away from the group, I felt guilty for having participated through my silence in the violence. So that's another thing that they can experience when they quit the community. It's the sense of guilt that they feel to have done nothing when they saw those violence in their everyday lives perpetrated against their sisters, their mothers, their friends. And it's also difficult to live outside the community. We have the example of Jade. When she quit the group, she didn't speak French. So do you know when I started speaking French? When I got to the name of the shelter, I didn't speak a word of French, just bonjour. They showed me how to take the metro, how to find my way around the city. They showed me everything. And I stayed for 4 months. For 4 months, I made a lot of effort to learn things because one day I knew I was going to leave and live on my own. So I had to manage. So we see that the curve of learning that she had to do when she quit the group was really important. She had to learn a lot of things in a short period of time to be able to be an autonomous woman. Hélène, a former member of a cult, will also say, you know, I have plenty of time. When I went to the rehab clinic, I was told that Father Bruno would surely give you a phosphorescent rosary that you can put on the edge and it will light, and that come out yellow or green. And when Father Bruno arrived, I refused to speak to him. I couldn't see what was in his hand, but he was the same way, and he was determined to give it to me. I refused to take it. They told me it was a rosary. Then I was told that if I didn't attend Father Bruno workshop, I might be kicked out of the therapy. So I didn't attend Father Bruno meeting and workshop, and at the end, they didn't kick me out. But I still find it hard to face up to that. What it was in my head and what I see as a sect or as a cult, what I see as an authority figure. And then even I see religion as abuse. I see the abuse of religious men everywhere. I see indoctrination everywhere. So you see, everything that she sees as religious is perceived as potential abuse. She cannot build a relation of trust with people that she can associate with part of her experience within the patriarchal community. That can also lead to question all the authority figure that they will see in their everyday life. For example, Nathalie would say, when people in position of authority came to see me at home to find out if I had sexual relation with another teenager in the community, I was so uncomfortable, but it never occurred to me that I could choose to not answer their question. Very intimate question about my sexual behavior. At that point, I was 14. I had never even kissed a man. And you have these three old men asking you if I touch myself in intimacy or if the teenager touches me and where. So you can see that because they experience those kind of experiences within the group, they will be really reluctant to give their power to an authority figure outside the community. But what we have learned, it's women throughout their experiences will say that they will slowly regain their power and their confidence. For example, a year out of the cult, where I was just like drinking all the time. And now I'm a quiet homebody. Like I'm just like working and I just go home. We got to the immigration claim, but it's like, for the most part, I remember thinking like, I just feel so grateful to like be in control of my own life. Like, I just feel so grateful to go to my job, go home, and like doing a little embroidery project. Because before such a thing, not a project that I could do. So it's kind of a paradise, you see, because now she can do what she wants, whenever she wants. She feels that she has a choice that she didn't have before. When they regain power, they can do many more things. For example, Elodie will say, Elodie showed how she was able to take advantage of her immigration to regain control of her life. When I came here, I found a new life. If I stay over there, it's something I wouldn't be alive anymore. There are a lot of good things about Canada, but the most important thing is that women are given value and importance. Today, I can live with the freedom I want. I'm the one who decides what I can do in the house. It's no longer my husband who decides. It's me who decides. So you see that in coming here to Canada, she used her rights to have a better life and break with the things that she had to do in her previous country.
So to conclude our presentation, so in patriarchal context, girls and women often find themselves in situations where they have no choice but to hope for a better future. They are systematically dispossessed of any form of power, leaving them vulnerable and dependent on the structure that oppresses them. Compliance with the norm is heavily emphasized, and there is no space for individuality. This rigid conformity stiff personal expression and reinforce the dominance of patriarchal values. The additional imposition of guilt further contribute to coercive control, making it difficult for women to break free from these constraints. The notion of spiritual abuse is imposed by the specific community rather than by a religion or culture. This form of abuse manipulates spiritual beliefs to enforce control and compliance, often under the guise of moral or religious righteousness. The instrumentalization of these values enable all forms of violence, sexual, physical, and spiritual. So by exploiting these deeply ingrained norms and beliefs, patriarchal system perpetuates a cycle of abuse and control that is difficult to escape. So it's, yeah. At a glance, we are trying to conceptualize spiritual abuse in the context of close patriarchal communities. So we missed some words in the bubbles for some reasons with the PowerPoint, but it's we can do without. Women find themselves trapped in the web, like what is the author?
Rutskaya.
Rutskaya, excuse me. And so with the concept of Rutskaya, we see they are trapped in a web, but the spiritual abuse that frame the group's life, the influence of multiple aggressors like community, family leaders, adds to the complexity of the situation when they seek help. They face numerous challenges, making their journey a true labyrinth from which it is difficult to escape. Even when they finally manage to leave, it's not certain that the woman will not return, as life outside the group and its norm is difficult. So they must reinvent themselves while also facing their trauma. So if you have questions, we stay with us to answer you. And if you want to keep the conversation going, don't hesitate to contact us by our email. Thank you.
Thank you.